Do you know what just arrived? A 3D pen. It's a pen that works like a 3D printer. So today, let's open this thing up and explore this gadget that I've wanted to test for years. I'm already letting you know that we bought one of the cheapest ones available, but I think it's going to work just fine. Look at this little thing here. It looks like a stove lighter. Let's find out how it works, right? First of all, it doesn't have a battery. It comes with a power adapter. So we have to use this thing plugged into the outlet, which isn't very comfortable, right? You lose a lot of mobility. Having the pen plugged in is a hassle. Back here, there's also a little hole where we put the filament, which in this case is plastic, just like we use in the 3D printer. Look, these spools here are from the 3D printer. It comes with just a little bit inside the box. Nothing compared to these spools we have in terms of size, right? But I think it's enough for us to use. And of course, the box also comes with a manual, which this time is in English. That's great. And I also found out that there's this little stand that's probably for you to rest the pen on. Yeah, to rest the pen on top because it's hot, right? Just like a hot glue gun, it needs some support. For those who have never heard of this thing, it's a pen that releases plastic from the tip. And then you can create objects with the plastic that comes out. It basically works with the same logic as a 3D printer. That machine also releases plastic from the tip. The difference is that it's all computerized. You put the drawing on the computer, plan it and everything, send it to the machine, and it does it by itself. This type of machine is called CNC. It's from the same family as the laser cutter, the water jet, okay? These are axes that you control by computer. And of course here, nothing is controlled by computer. You have to do it manually. So it's much more like a hot glue gun. The hot glue gun also releases a kind of plastic at the tip, right? A sort of rubber. It also heats up the plastic to release it. This pen will do the same thing. The difference is that with the hot glue gun, you need to keep pressing for the plastic to come out. But here it has a little motor that does that on its own. And a few more controls that I don't know exactly what they are. The first thing is that there are two types of plastic we can use. The 3D printer also accepts them, okay? The first one is ABS. It's a cheaper plastic. In the 3D printer, it's a bit complicated because the printer needs to be enclosed to use ABS, but it's made from petroleum. The second plastic is PLA, which is made from plants. It can be made from corn, beetroot, cassava, or even sugarcane. So the first control you have here is the temperature of the pen. You set whether you're going to use PLA or ABS because they're plastics that melt at different temperatures. So you don't work with PLA. Now let's put the filament in here. And these two buttons, look, here the filament comes out. Look, it's coming out. It's even coming out blue because there was already blue in there from when we tested it before. Actually, it was Vider who tested it. I hadn't seen this thing working before. It's really cool. It looks like it's making a little poop at the tip here. So this button here is to make the filament come out. Another one is to pull the filament back. And on the other side, we have buttons to increase or decrease the flow speed. Let's try using it at maximum speed. Look. It goes slow, fast, let's go. I'm gonna try to make any object just to test. Make my first ever object with this pen. The first thing we usually do is use it on a plastic surface. So you can remove the plastic later and it doesn't stick to the table. Here, it also shows the filament temperature. PLA is about 210. I'm going to try to make a cube. Elimination. I should have tested the plastic beforehand to see if it would stick to the table or not. That's a problem we also have with 3D printers. If the plastic comes off the base, the whole print goes wrong. That's what happened here. I started pulling the plastic and it all came off. I'll try to do it on a surface with adhesive tape, which I think is better. This square of mine isn't two problems. At the very beginning of the print, it came out all bubbly because it was too hot, the plastic boiled. Then, when I tried to make a curve, it was still soft, and the curve went wrong. And I took it off too soon, so it got even more crooked than it should have. Let's try to do it again. You have to understand the speed of the pen and follow the pen. Anyone who does soldering will probably find it pretty easy to handle this thing here. You can't stop in the middle, man. There was some progress here, huh? Let's move on to something bold. I'm going to take a square and try to pull one side of it up into the third dimension. If this experiment works, I think this pen has won my heart. Look, how crazy is that? Here it's already a junction. Look, let's try to continue this story then. The little leg didn't stick. I'll try to glue it later, which is something I haven't tested yet. Just soldering a piece that's already done. Looks like it worked. I'll do the last leg here. Look how cool I'm like. Look here. How cool, I'm using the plastic as if it were solder right now. It's kind of shrinking and acting like hot glue at this moment. It's very. The first thing I made with this thing, I'll admit I was surprised. I'd already give it a thumbs up, but the way people really play with this is by using templates. So if you look on the internet, you'll find several molds like this one, where you can create the object as flat pieces, then assemble and glue the pieces, and it becomes three-dimensional. I'm going to try with the easiest one we picked here, which is a pair of glasses, which are even a bit more elaborate than the ones I used at the beginning of the video. By the way, you can create your own drawing on the paper and then trace over it with the pen, because I think doing it directly with the 3D pen is kind of complicated. It's best to plan ahead. I'll try to use another color of filament here. Let's try gray. Pretty isn't exactly the word, right? I'll try to use a lower temperature and see if it gets less wrinkled. Wrinkled. I hope you guys already gave a like during the cube part, because now it's not turning out very well. A big advantage of the 3D printer is this right here. Check it out. It has a little fan right above where the plastic comes out, so it comes out and starts hardening right away. Here, that's not the case. The plastic comes out and stays soft, and you have a hard time working with it. But I think these glasses turned out pretty cool, didn't they? Let's try to make this arched bridge now. It has 12 pieces. The challenge has nothing to do with glasses. And I also have my doubts if it's going to look good. I don't know if I have the skill to make such tiny little things like this. Now it's time to put all of this together, which I don't know if it's making sense or not. Look, I'll confess to you that it's harder than I thought. It takes a bit of practice here to make it look good. But if you look at the piece individually, it's kind of ugly. When you look from afar, the whole set looks pretty nice. It's not that weird. Look, throughout the whole process, I've been wondering whether this thing gets too hot and can burn your hand, especially because I think this is a really cool toy for kids to play and make things. But if there's a chance of burning your hand, maybe it's not so much for kids, right? You probably have to be at least, I don't know, around 10 years old, I'm not sure. So I'm gonna test it for you right now. Let's see if this thing burns your hand easily. If you press the tip and keep your hand on the tip, then you'll burn your hand. But dropping the plastic in your hand doesn't burn. So I think it's pretty safe, huh? It releases some little strands of plastic, which also happens with the 3D printer, okay? Because when you pull it, a little bit comes along, then you have to remove that at the end. When you're doing it, it's hard to believe it'll work, but it turns out cooler than I expected. There was something that's a classic with the 3D pen, which is making the Eiffel Tower. I think you need a bit more practice than I have, because everything I touched moved, as you can see in the video. But let's give it a try. This paper that's being used as a template, you can reuse it later, okay? You don't need to throw it away. How do you change the filament? I'm going to use lime green to make the tower, just to have a different color. I take the piece I need here. Then, with the pen hot, I press the reverse button. Actually I shouldn't. It wasn't heating up yet. It's annoying to have to wait for this. There's a smell of burnt plastic that lingers in the air, I'm telling you. Okay, now it's green. Then I press reverse. The filament comes out, and then I put in the next filament, and it already cooled down in those 10 seconds that I turned it off. It already cooled down. Now I press here, and it starts pulling the filament. It was working with gray before the gold. It started coming out green. It's still a bit mixed. Now it's good. When you start using the plastic that's right at the tip, it's already been kind of cooking there. It comes out all burnt. So look, just discard a little bit here, and now it's good. One interesting thing that the pen does is that When it stops releasing plastic, it pulls a little bit of the plastic back. That's so it doesn't keep dripping plastic. The 3D printer does this too. The problem is that when you activate it again to release plastic, it takes a little while. So the ideal is to never stop releasing plastic, because when you start again, it's always more complicated. I don't think it's going to come out perfect, but I also don't think it's going to come out that bad. I'm going to try to use a little bit of tape here, because I can't keep holding it by hand. Let's stick these little ends here then. Sometimes it just keeps releasing plastic and won't stop. You have to turn it off and on again. The worst part is that the temperature doesn't come back. I mean, it does, but it drops and then you have to let it rise again. Now comes the fun part, which is assembling. I'm going to make 2 X-shaped braces here in the middle of the tower's base, because I think it's going to be wobbly. It's much better now. The smaller the piece, the harder it is to work with it here. Fitting this little end in now isn't easy. Look, this tower turned out so cool that I'm going to save it for the end. Let's do the same as with the perfect ball. I'll only show it at the end of the video, so my verdict about this little thing here. It smells like burnt plastic, it glitches sometimes, it's hard to learn, but it's really cool. I would really like to get something like this as a gift, with a little bit of filament. I would have so much fun. If I were a kid, I would go crazy over this thing. Just so you have an idea, one of these pens costs 110 Rs. A 200-gram roll of filament costs 40 Rs. 200 grams is enough for a lot of things. Everything we made here, let's weigh it, right? 38 grams, so you can have a lot of fun. So these were the objects we managed to make on the first day using the 3D pen. It doesn't replace a 3D printer because it won't make things as well finished or as complex, but it's an amazing toy. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, all right? I'm even going to remove that X-shaped reinforcement I made, because it'll look better on the inside. Because it's not necessary, it's very sturdy. If you felt a bit lost in this 3D world, we recorded a video in the Manual Maker series. It shows how a 3D printer works from start to finish, with lots of details. It's worth knowing how this amazing machine works.